Hi dancers, Jess here. Welcome back to the Whole Dancer YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk through a question that actually came through the Whole Dancer Facebook group. So if you're not yet in that group, be sure to join over on Facebook. It's a private group. You just have to request access and respond to a few questions. And then as long as you're a dancer and it's appropriate for you to be in there, you'll be admitted to the group. But in there, we do some extra live chatting about food and wellness topics. And it's just a great way to get your answers to questions a little bit more quickly. But I do also in that group ask for people to submit questions that they would like me to address on YouTube. So today I'm going to address one of those questions. Here it is. The person asks, maybe you can tell something about talent. How can I know that I'm talented enough for dancing? Can I improve my outcome in some way? And I have to say, I love that she asked this question because I think it's probably something that we think about a lot and something that we tend to default to and say, well, she's just more talented than me, or I just don't have the natural talent that some other dancers have, or I started late, things like that. We have these things that we say to ourselves that we use as sort of excuses, but partly they're kind of just tearing us down a little bit and taking us away from reaching our full potential. So to dive into that, I wanted to bring up a book that I think is like essential reading for dancers because it's a very important discussion of the whole concept of talent. And that book is called Bounce, and the sub is The Myth of Talent and the Power of Practice, and it's by Matthew Syed. So he does a study, or he studies basically all these different athletes and artists to see what it really is. Is it that they are just born prodigies? They're born with natural ability. They're, just gifted, and that's it. We can never get there. Everyone else is mere mortal and will never achieve what those people have achieved, or they just have this natural advancement, or, they have a natural advantage that we can never quite get to. And in dance, I will recognize that there are some things that we don't have control of, obviously, and that does impact our ability to perform and to improve as dancers. So some of those things would include natural flexibility, open hips or turnout, and then of course the ease with which you can maintain a quote-unquote dancer body. So we all know people who naturally are thinner, who just kind of stay that way, where it's really not a struggle no matter what they eat. I will say that for some of them, they really just have a very healthy relationship with food, and that really is all it is. And if they want to indulge and they're like in the mood for a cookie, they'll have enough cookie as they are hungry for, and then they'll stop. So there's other factors in that area as well. But there are people who do tend to just stay thinner naturally, and they have an easier time maintaining a quote-unquote ballet body. When you look at other factors that are going to impact one's ability to succeed in dance, there are some things that come into play. Having mentors, especially if you have mentors who, dance professionally with top companies, and they're advising you as to what should be your next steps. They're training you perhaps and giving you one-on-one coaching. Those things are going to give you an advantage and help you to move further more quickly than perhaps your peers. A couple of other things that are going to impact your ability to advance are going to be your dedication and the actual hours you spend. That's one of those things that in the book, he shows it's a huge factor. The people who are performing the best usually are the ones who spent the most hours practicing, all other things being equal. And, then we tend to look at them and say, oh, that person is a prodigy. But, if it's like a child violinist and they started playing the violin when they were 5 and they play the violin 8 hours a day from the time that they're 5, and then a 10-year-old comes along who started playing the violin when they were 8 and they practice 2 hours a day, who's going to be more advanced? Who's going to be the prodigy? Who's going to be the one who we say has the talent? It's the person who spent more hours. And in the book, he shows that it has to come from within that person, that child who was working 8 hours a day. It has to be their desire to be working on it, not an outside factor. They have to have internal motivation to move forward. When most of us practice, we get into the studio and we work on the things that we already do well. Or, we kind of try to even get a little bit better at those things that are already comfortable for us. But if you want to really move forward and see the progress, it really is about working on those things that are the struggle for you. The things that are not easy, the things that are super frustrating, the steps that, you know, when you're in a class, you're like, oh, please don't add that in. Please no gargouillon. Please, you know, all of those things that make us like, oh God, I could never. Those are the things you have to work on. And the people who really excel in dance and athletics work on those things that they need to work on the most, the things that really are what would be dragging them down otherwise. And when you work on those things, then when you get to an audition and it gets thrown in and you're like, oh, I never see that in class, or I hate seeing that in class, or it's the worst when that comes into class, instead you'll have worked on it and you'll be like, oh, I can actually do that. So it's about the way that you're working and the perspective that you're coming from as you attack that work. You have to have that very targeted and specific effort going towards those areas of opportunity in order to improve as a dancer and really move forward. So it's not just about knowing what you need to improve. Yes, we need the information that tells us this is what you need to work on. And sometimes we can't come up with all of that on our own. Sometimes we just don't see it or don't feel it. So to have a teacher, whether it's private instructor or someone who you work with at your school, who tells you, you need to work on this. This is where you should be focusing your time. And then putting the focus time on it. And getting from them, or from whomever you can, getting the information about what exactly you need to do in order to perform those steps more consistently and more cleanly and just better. We can't be blindly working. We can't just be repeating things without some sort of information about what actually needs to change and what needs to happen for us to get better. So you really need to make sure that you have all of the information for targeted practice. So this is an example from the book that I want to share, and I'm going to read most of it just because it's talking about a figure skater. So I think that as dancers, we can somewhat relate to that. Obviously, it's different, but you know, there are some consistencies there. And I think that it's just a really important discussion of mindset. And that's something that I talk about a lot at The Whole Dancer, because if you don't have the mindset piece figured out and you haven't worked through those mental struggles that you're going through in dance, moving forward is just nearly impossible, to be honest. And moving forward consistently and, you know, getting to the next level and dealing with failure when you're working through all of those mindset things is going to be near impossible. So I'm just going to read this to give you all some perspective. The figure skater champion fell and fell. Why did she not give up? Because she did not interpret falling down as failure. Armed with a growth mindset, which there's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and those are two different ways of looking at pretty much the world, but very much about how we approach work and how we approach our potential for growth and improvement. You want to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. She interpreted falling down not merely as a means of improving, but as evidence that she was improving. Failing provided her with an opportunity to learn, develop, and adapt. So the falling was the evidence that she was getting better. So we have to sort of look at it that way as dancers as well. It's the times that we're misstepping. It's the times we can't quite do a combination correctly that we're going to learn how to improve, and we're going to find those areas and find those tweaks that we need to make in order to shift how we're working and improve our work. If you expect the best, you're given some strange kind of power to create the conditions that produce the desired result. I love that. If you expect the best, you are given some strange kind of power to create the conditions that produce the desired results. I just had to read it again for effect. The difference between world-class performers and mediocre performers are that they take these mental manipulations to greater extremes. They have taught themselves to ratchet up their optimism at the point of performance, to mold the evidence to fit their beliefs. Mold the evidence to fit their beliefs rather than the other way around, to activate doublethink. I just need to pause on that for a minute. I think that it's just such a clear example of the fact that the mindset piece is so huge. And that is a big part of this book. If you're looking for something to motivate you or looking for something to help you move forward, definitely check out this book. Bounce: The Myth of Talent and the Power of Practice by Matthew Syed. Just to kind of sum up. So yes, there are those things that as dancers are out of our control. The ability to maintain that dancer's body that we're all working towards. The ability or the capacity for turnout based on our physicality, our anatomy, and our bone structure and all of that. And then of course, you know, flexibility and how much we have naturally, although a lot of that can be worked on. But if you have it naturally and you have the feet and you have hyperextension and all those desirable things, sure, perhaps we could say you have a leg up. But beyond that, so much of it is within your control. There are dancers, yes, who end up having those tools available to them because maybe of where they live. They're located near a great school, so they start having incredible training from the time that they're very young. And, you know, or they have parents who are willing to invest in private coaching with some star dancer. So yes, there are those things, but beyond that, so much of it has to do with time, the way that you work, and your mindset. It's important to think about, you know, the dancers who go to the top schools around the world and who have been there from the time that they were very young, they're assessed based on their anatomy. And, you know, they're not just chosen because of flexibility or the way they look or because they love to dance. They're chosen because they have physical attributes that are tailored to dance. Outside of those things, though, the time, the practice, the patience that you put into dance really is what you're going to get out of it. I hope this motivates you. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you again so much for tuning in once more. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the Whole Dancer YouTube channel. If you ever have a topic that you would like me to cover, feel free to reach out. My email is jess@thewholedancer.com. I'll catch you next time.